everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have used some fabric scraps to create a wearable pincushion. This is a great project for anyone who has just started sewing, as it is completely hand sewn. It has also become one of my sewing essentials, so let's get into it. I used some scrap fabric from a shirt on the outside of the cushion, and the white fabric is a sleeve from an old t-shirt that will be used to stuff the cushion later. Taking the material for the outside of my pincushion, I laid it out flat and used a lid that had a diameter of 4.5 inches to draw around. I then cut this circle out. Next, I needed to sew a basting stitch around the edge of the circle. I used a needle and thread for this, but you can use the machine if you wanted to. A basting stitch is a long running stitch or straight stitch that looks like this. Once I'd sewn all the way around the edge, I pulled on the thread so the fabric gathered up and made a small pouch that looked like this. I left the needle and thread attached, as I'll be sewing it closed later. I then used the old sleeve fabric to create a stuffing for the pincushion. I cut it up into small pieces so it wouldn't look bulky inside the cushion. You can use wadding for this instead, but I wanted to put some of my scrap fabric to use. I stuffed the cushion until it was full and looked like this. I then pulled on the thread that was still attached to close the gap and sewed it shut. This is how it looked. Next, I needed to make the wristband, but I didn't want to stab myself with pins while wearing it. I used the lid from a jar to be a barrier between the pincushion and my wrist. I used the remaining fabric from my sleeve to cover it. I cut out a piece big enough to cover the lid. To attach this to the fabric, I used a hot glue gun. I bought mine from my local craft store for just a few pounds. If you are using a glue gun, do be careful and always be supervised by a responsible adult. You could paint the lid instead if you wanted to. I first put a bit of glue on the centre of the lid and placed this onto the centre of my fabric and held it in place for a few seconds. I then needed to cover the edges. I did this by gluing a piece of the lid at a time to make sure everything was neat, and also because the glue dries very fast. This is how it looked once everything was covered. I then measured a piece of elastic around my wrist and added an extra inch so it would be comfortable to wear, and sewed the ends together to create a loop. Now I needed to attach all the pieces. With the bottom of the lid facing up, I put a bit of glue in the centre and placed the join of the elastic over this and held it in place. I then put a bit of glue on either side of this to make it more secure. This is how it looks so far. Then I put enough glue in the lid to hold the pincushion and placed it on with the sewn side facing down and made sure it was secure. The pincushion was now complete, and this is how it looked. This is so simple to make and such a great project for beginners and those who have scraps of fabric laying around. It is also such a useful item for any sewer to have. As I still had some of the fabric left over, I made another smaller pincushion to sit on my sewing machine. I attached this using double-sided tape. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.